Hello and welcome to another episode of Flying High with Flutter. I'm your host, Allenwyma. Before we start, I want to do a quick reach out to the community. So right now at Plangora, which actually sponsors this podcast, we have some availability for new projects. So if you're looking for some help in Rust, Elixir, or Flutter, or anything else, please definitely reach out to us and we'll be sure to help you guys out. And now back to the show. Guys, to reach us out, just go to our website, www.plangora.com. And then over there, you can go to the contact page and contact with us. Now I'm going to get back to our guest, the very, very famous, very nice Vincenzo Palazzo, also known as Vincent. He is one of the maintainers of GraphQL Flutter, or is it Flutter GraphQL? GraphQL Flutter, right?
GraphQL Flutter, yeah.
So if you guys are working with GraphQL, I highly recommend this package. What I like about it the most is that you don't actually have to use the widgets. You could just use the client itself. I think we're splitting the different packages, but I usually just use the client by itself. But in any case, he is a recent addition because the current maintainer had to leave for whatever reason. And now Vincent and one other guy is now currently maintaining the application, the library, which is quite a massive undertaking, I would say, because it's a pretty big package. Why don't we kind of go into you, right? Why don't you quickly introduce yourself and then we can start. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And hi, everyone. And it's great to be here. I'm Vincent. My real name is Vincenzo Palazzo, and I am Italian guy. And I am a open source software engineer. I do all the stuff open source, and I start to work on GraphQL Flutter in November as an official maintainer because the package don't have any maintainer, and it was dying step by step or day by day. And I was a user that of this package in one of my side projects, and I said, okay, maybe I can pass some free time on this package and help the community to keep alive the package.
Yeah, but I mean, do you have any idea what happened to the original maintainer? Because actually, I think this package has been passed around quite a few times when I look at the history of it.
Yes, the package was born for an internal startup that's called Zeno Apps or something like that. And after that, I think was a next maintainer. The next maintainer are working in the I think during the quarantine, the first quarantine in 2020, April 2020. And he started to grow the package a lot and had a lot of functionality. And after that, this maintainer announced that he had a full-time job, and he quit the package and say, I am not interested, or I have not time to work on this package. And the last step of this maintainer is take the version 4 of the package and upgrade to null safety, and after null safety the version 5 of the package born, and after that remain this version for 1 year, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, doesn't it make you a little bit nervous about being a maintainer of a package which seems to keep getting new maintainers every once in a while? I mean, do you think maybe it's because it's a big burnout or something else?
I really don't know. I have a different approach, and I think that also Flutter right now is a little bit. Each version start to introduce new feature, new change, and different stuff. Right? If you the major release of Flutter introduces null safety, and basically you need to update all the app. But I think from another viewpoint, Flutter is used now in the startups that are starting to grow faster, right? And I think that maintainer start to maintain the library because have a goal to achieve, right? For instance, want to support GraphQL because the maintainer is the first user of this library, and after that, maybe when change the stuff change or the situation change in the future, the maintainer lost the focus of this library. This is perfectly normal, right? But from the user viewpoint, it's also a little bit how you said unstable, because you are using a popular library right now, but tomorrow you don't know if it is ready to update a new major Flutter release, right? For sure, right now I am not an official first user of this library. I am the official maintainer because I am maintaining this library, right? We have a Discord community that I will make a live video sometime when I have time, and discuss with the community what you want to add, and what is we have some priority on what we need to change, what we need to add, and something like that. For the moment, I am the official maintainer, and I hope I will stay longer than 1 or 2 years, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, I still kind of want to go back because, I mean, being a maintainer, is this your first time ever maintaining a package, or this is, third time, or how many times have you actually ever maintained a package?
Actually, I am the maintainer official maintainer of, I think, 4 package, of not Flutter. This is my first official maintaining of Flutter package. But I also work on Java, and I am the maintainer of one of the popular look and feel of Java, that is a material theme, basically, that is used by Arizona State University in a project sponsored by NASA. And also I am working on Bitcoin side, and I am the maintainer of different project with some tricky name. But I am maintaining different package, different project with different language, like C, Java, there is Python, Rust, and Flutter for the moment.
Oh, really? You're using Rust also?
I start to using Rust seriously this year. But yes, I am using Rust for 1 year, I think, but not seriously. This year is inside my year's to-do list, right? In the 2020, when a new year starts, you make your to-do list and say, okay, now I want to do this stuff in this year. Yes, for the moment I am focusing on Rust because I like a lot the lower level programming.
So how do you feel about the difference between Rust and Dart? Because to me, they're both kind of, I mean, they can't be used for the same things because Dart has a GC, right? Garbage collector. So, but how do you feel about the two different languages? Because they do have a lot of similarities. I think they're strongly typed, compiled, these kind of things.
I usually learn language by analogy, right? I learn Kotlin by analogy with Java. I learn C by analogy with NoSQL. C I learn by nothing, but C++ with Java. And I think the main difference with Rust and Dart, for instance, is how the concept that Rust introduced, right? Like the ownership of one object or one piece of memory, right? In Flutter is a little bit more easy, right? Because we have the same concept. Dart is helping you to avoid access to some null pointer, right? Invalid memory, but in a different way, with this null safety way. And in Rust, by analogy, we have the option type that we can have a result or unknown. And I think are two different languages that make the same stuff in different way. If I need to prefer one language, I prefer Dart because is more easy to write, and also more, I don't know, I like the option parameter, for instance, because it's readable for any user that also don't know Dart, right? You know that this function take this parameter that is called request, for instance, and you call request 2 dots, and you pass your parameter. This is descriptive for the user. I don't know if I answer your question. I'm going a little bit more longer, but I think are two separate language, and I don't see a really a use case where I said I need to use Dart or Rust, right? Because I think for my point of view are two languages that are focusing two different parts of the application.
Yeah, I think so. I think they kind of complement each other. I mean, for me, if you want raw speed, you go for Rust. If you want something that's pretty quick, but pretty easy to pick up, pretty easy to learn, yeah, I think Dart is definitely something that's out there. It's amazing, like when you write a Flutter application, you're really writing Dart, To me, when you write a Flutter app, it's just weird. It looks weird because you're just basically doing constructors instead of constructors, right? Which is just odd.
Yeah, and this is, I think, one of the amazing stuff that Flutter introduced, right? It is not Flutter that introduced this concept. Is I think the first languages was Swift. I don't know, but this type of I talk with a lot of people that think that Flutter is a language, and this is completely wrong, right? Because the people are writing Dart code, and also one of the things that I don't like of Flutter is that it's too easy to write. And maybe you can write a component by copy and paste code from another source. And maybe the user don't take more important to learn Dart, but I said, okay, I am writing this app that looks amazing, but is written in Flutter, right? No, it's written in Dart, right? Maybe tomorrow another developer say, okay, Flutter is gone, and now there is another framework much better than Flutter, right? But it's written in Dart. And but I think the first time that I see Flutter, I say, this is really cool language. This is the first time that I see Dart, I say, this is a very cool language. And after that, I see how Flutter work and said, this is very cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Flutter that, there's also quite some magic to it, right? With the different types of trees, element trees, render trees, widget trees, which we all know about. So, I have to go digging deeper too, because I kind of learned as much as I need to go and then just kind of go from there. But I'll be getting more and more into it some more because I need to know more and want to know more, because I run into some weird edge cases here and there. Helps, like you said, it helps to learn more about what you're working with. Then you can say, oh, okay, this is how you should do it.
This is something this is something that I am working also on one of my side projects. I am a master student also. I am making a master thesis, and I start my demo with Flutter. And what I start to say is maybe I can avoid. I don't like to make my application full of package, right? For instance, you have a different package that make different stuff, but you can do this hard coded in your application, and this can help you to stay alive. Also, the package died, right? And this is a connection with what we are talking before. Your package GraphQL is very popular, yeah, but in the last 2 years changed 3 maintainer. And if there is no next maintainer, your application is coupled with something that is dying. And this is something that I encourage the people to do, is jump inside this project and see if I can avoid to include this package, right? and or maybe making some architecture that involve the user to use some good pattern, right? This is something missing around GraphQL environment, right? We are missing a package that give you the possibility to write a good Dart app with the design pattern, for instance, I don't know, a generic app provider or something like that, right?
Actually, I kind of want to wind back a bit because there's a lot of newer people in Flutter, right? So you and I both know what is GraphQL, but can you describe to somebody who's never heard of GraphQL, like what is GraphQL and how does it compare to REST?
GraphQL is the REST to the new version of REST, right? Basically, what we want to achieve with GraphQL is simplify the query operation or standardize the query operation from the user viewpoint. For instance, if all we know how work REST, right? You make a request to ask something, and the server responds with a JSON response. But if you the idea that the example that I use always is if we imagine to make a demo app of with the Pokemon API, right? If someone work with the Pokemon API is a very complex API, right? Because have different link, and maybe if you want to fill the information of one Pokemon, you need to make 4 or 5 requests to the server. And when you make the request, you are asking all the data that the server provide with this request, right? But maybe you need only 1 field, 2 field, or half of the field. You don't need all the field from the GraphQL, from the server. And GraphQL standardized the way to say, hey, I won't make a query because I want this information, and you can specify by the field name, what information you want back. For instance, if a Pokemon has the name and other 20 field, you want only the name, you can call this GraphQL query and say, hey, I want only the name. And the JSON response return only the name. Another cool stuff that GraphQL have is the standardized way to mutate the data. For instance, when you want to add a new Pokemon to the server, you usually have a put or post request, depend from the language that your REST API have. In the GraphQL, you have this concept of mutation. That is another cool query that point to mutate some data, and you can pass a GraphQL type, and you have this standard way to talk with the server. And I think it's a good way to standardize the way to talk with the server, but also to talk with a very big API, right? If you think to speak with to build a GitHub application, you need to make a very complex query, right? And in this way, with GraphQL, you can say, okay, the query is that I have also the type, right? Because GraphQL introduced a language that a type of the language that where you define the type of the data, and you define also the type of the query that your server need to implement, right? Or also the client need to implement to ask the query, to ask something to the server. And GraphQL, I see that GraphQL solved the problem with the big API, REST API, right? If you have a big REST API, something is sometimes is annoying. Call 4 or 5 times the REST API to call only one method, right? Only to fill only one object with your model. I don't know if I cover all the point. If I miss something, please ask.
Yeah, you covered a lot of pieces of it. I mean, Yeah, it definitely does put a lot more standards on it because REST is still quite open, I think. There's some things which are expected. And then there's always this put in patch, right? Like, technically they're two different things, but usually people use them interchangeably because patch was kind of like discovered. Yet, I believe it was defined a long time ago, but it was somehow discovered later on saying, oh, actually, we shouldn't be using put for updates. We should be using patch because we're doing partial update, not a full update. So it gets kind of confusing. Not to mention your web browser basically only supports two types, right? Get and post. And put and delete, all these other ones just kind of come out of some wackiness that translates for you. That's what I kind of remember. But yeah, that's a good point, right? So you have these queries, which is just all about getting data, right? I want this, give me some things. I want this particular resource or a bunch of resources or a search. So basically non-mutating database access or data access. And then, like you said, mutations, which are very clear, right? Mutations, mutating data. I'm going to be actually doing something, creating, deleting, editing, etc., which is kind of cool. But I think one of the part that really shines about GraphQL is that you could say, I want you to get my friend's grandfather's dog name. And you can traverse the whole entire tree. And you could just get the name of that dog and rather than getting all the other data, which is quite fascinating.
Yeah. And also another problem that solve GraphQL is now we live in the world that one application have different device, different target user, and maybe on a web browser you need a different function that you don't want to implement on mobile app. And I think this is very important. The GraphQL API is very important in the environment of multi-platform framework like Flutter, right? We want to implement only one code base that implement all the platform, and maybe in some platform don't want put some data, and this is difficult to implement. This functionality is difficult to implement with a REST API because usually the REST API have some trick to do always, and I think the GraphQL solve a lot of this problem. And another thing that I would like to mention is that GraphQL have a language, and you can define the query in your language, in your target language, for instance, Dart, by a compile time. And this is what we are doing in GraphQL Flutter. We want, now you need to build your query. And your query is copy and paste the code inside a Dart string. But this is annoying and this is very bad. I don't like, for instance, I don't want to do in one of my projects that, right? Because I don't like to write something in the query inside one string. And what we are trying to do is we define a GraphQL file with all the query that we need. And after that, we call a compiler. That is a project that the other maintainer of GraphQL Flutter are building. Is GraphQL code gen, and basically take this GraphQL and generate the code to build a strongly typed in Dart lang query for GraphQL Flutter. And this is a very good stuff, that a very good option, because you can have change your API, but if you have a compiler, you can change easily your code base, right?
Yeah, I think this is actually something I was looking for because I usually just write about all my stuff as strings. And I think I was looking at this one before. So is it that you can point it to like a schema and it could just generate all the code for you? Is that how this thing works?
Yeah. You generate your schema in your application, you call the builder, and when it runs search for all GraphQL query and generate the Dart copy. And the cool stuff that this compiler has is that you can specify what type of client you want support. For instance, if you want support GraphQL, that is the client used in GraphQL Flutter, the compiler generates exactly the code that you need to call the GraphQL Flutter, to work with the GraphQL Flutter package. And for the moment, he supports GraphQL Flutter. And we are working together also because I have a side project that is a wrapper auto-generated API for GitHub, written in Dart, and we are collaborating. I put some idea in the GitHub project and say, hey, maybe it's cool that we have this functionality. And I think in the long term we are trying to add this functionality in GraphQL Flutter to avoid put the constraint to the user to define the query inside the GraphQL Dart language, Dart string. We won't avoid these very bad things for the user, but also very bad things for us, because half of the pull request half of the bug report that are reporting on the package are server error, because you are providing the wrong query.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is, I mean, writing the server for GraphQL is a little bit tricky, right? Have you ever written a GraphQL server before?
Yeah, I am using Go to writing my GraphQL query for a GraphQL server for my master thesis. Basically, my master thesis talk about some collecting metrics, and GraphQL is the perfect framework to make this type of server, because you have a bunch of data and you don't want to know all the data query time. And basically I'm working with Go because there is an auto-generated framework that is, I don't remember the name now, but there is a very popular framework to build the GraphQL server, and it's fun, but it's a little bit tricky because different frameworks speak in different way. Also, GraphQL now have two type of WebSocket protocol, and it can be tricky because you are speaking with a server that speak a new WebSocket protocol, but you don't have the update in your client library, and you have this something of mismatch. And this is a problem that we have in GraphQL Flutter. We are starting to think how find the time to implement this big feature, because it's an update in the protocol.
I know what you mean, because actually, so I usually use Phoenix and Elixir for my backends, and the GraphQL library for that one is called Absinthe. And Absinthe has a very different subscription model where it goes over Phoenix channels. So it's like, I cannot, like, that was one thing I really disliked about GraphQL Flutter, is that you didn't have the connector out of the box for it, which I'm not going to blame you guys, because to be honest, after kind of asking some more questions and figuring out for myself, subscriptions are not standard, as you said. There's more than one standard out there. And because there's two standards, that's actually two popular standards, not necessarily two standards only, right? If I understand correctly.
Yeah, this is true. And the subscription is something that is tricky in GraphQL. And also in GraphQL Flutter, I think we have some improvement to do, right? We have, but what I usually want to avoid is break the API. And when you change the protocol, I won't be safely said, okay, we support a new protocol now, a new way to speak with the server, but the older version of Flutter and the new version are with the same API. And because I don't want that the user say, okay, something has changed and my application don't work anymore. And the easy thing to do is fix the version of the package, and you are missing all the new feature, right? The new bug fixing. And for this reason, we need to find the time to implement to implement a bug fixing and make the bug fixing on this on this subscription. Because during the subscription, you need to also manage the cache and the different type of cache, the different type of when the user wants cache something or don't cache something. And if you don't take a lot of time to think in this big update, you can break the API easily. And maybe the new update introduce some other bug. And when you fix this bug, you can break API again. And this is something that I want to completely avoid. And for this reason, we are a little bit slower in this side, because we are trying to say what is the best way to do this one.
Yeah, actually, maybe we can talk a little bit more about how GraphQL Flutter is kind of drawn up, because it's not just GraphQL Flutter. Like, I think it's actually GraphQL, and then there's GraphQL Flutter, which depends on GraphQL, right? Because you can just use the GraphQL part by itself. And then GraphQL Flutter, I think, let me know if I'm wrong, is just like a bunch of widgets that use GraphQL to kind of better. Maybe I'll let you talk about this, because maybe I'm not going to say this. I never used it before, so I think I have to ask you for this help.
Oh, yeah, it is a great question, because we are maintaining not only one package, we are maintaining two packages. Basically, the GraphQL Flutter implement a GraphQL client. That is something an HTTP, is usually an HTTP client that is able to speak also WebSocket protocol. That is used to handle all the query that you want to make in pure Dart language. And this means that you usually don't, maybe you don't want to use the GraphQL with a Flutter application, right? But a command line application. Or maybe you want to make a script to query GraphQL, you want to make a script to query the GitHub page to make a custom action, right? You can do this with Dart, and you can do this with GraphQL Flutter, because internally we have another package that is called GraphQL, and this package handles all the client logic. Implement the protocol, implement the query parsing, implement all the type that you want, right? All the type that you need inside a GraphQL client. After that, this package is used inside the real GraphQL Flutter. That is only a wrapper around this client, and said, okay, if you want to build something in your Flutter application, we provide to you some widget that you can use inside your application. Usually, with simple GraphQL query, you don't need to use this GraphQL package. A GraphQL Flutter package, but you can use only the GraphQL Flutter, the GraphQL client, sorry. And this avoid that you will couple with the package too much, because if you implement your query, you are depending. If you are implementing your query with a GraphQL Flutter widget, you are coupled with the package. Too much with your tree is depending from the package, and what we are trying to avoid is the GraphQL package avoid this type of couple with the tree of Flutter. And I think I give the good overview. Let me know if I'm missing something.
Can we talk more about like what kinds of like, because as I said before, to me, like maybe you're talking to me, right? This is a very good audience to talk about. Is I only feel the need to ever use the client, and the way I use the client is that I just keep calling everything from scratch, because I'm always afraid that I never take cache. I never use cache because my clients and stuff are always updating data. So to me, it's like I'd rather just grab the latest data, because I tried caching before, but what happens is that when they test, they will update something in the back end, and then they try to fetch it, and it's not updated because they're caching, and then they get upset with me. oh, why is the app broken? So I just never cache. But like, should I use caching? And also, like, maybe do you think I should take a look at some of these widgets that Flutter GraphQL has? Like that's my two kind of questions I have.
To answer the first question is we are missing the invalidation of the query, the cache, right? Because we don't have any mechanism to say, hey, this cache is too old respect with the query. And this is a very tricky problem because GraphQL doesn't implement this type of communication client server. You don't know what is the last query, update query that you have. On the server, you can do that because it's the server that updates the data, right? Each time that the server updates the data, you say, okay, this query is old, and you put in the trash, right? In the client, this is a little bit more difficult because you really don't know what is the last data update with the server. But the cache is useful when you have a mobile app that you have without connection, and basically we have in GraphQL a type of rules like internet and cache. For instance, the library tries to speak before with the server. If something is wrong, we enter inside the cache and say, this is the last data that we know. We cannot do better than this. And the alternative to if you don't want this cache data, you got an error. I don't know what is happening, right? There are other options, maybe only cache, maybe only different stuff, right? Different type of cache. And only cache is useful, for instance, when you are calling a static API. For instance, when you are calling a Pokemon API, or an API that, for instance, you implement your blog, and you won't show, if you have the data of this blog post, is this blog post forever, right? Maybe you can change you make the typo and you can fix the typo, but if you think a little bit more general with that corner case, there are some type of API that you don't care about the data updated, because this API maybe never update the data after the query, right? And you can use only the cache. I think in the cache system we can improve something from my point of view. But this is the cache is very useful when you have a mobile app and you have you are without internet, and you say, hey, there is something wrong with internet right here, and we are providing the old data that we have. But we need to figure out very invalidation data. When is a good moment to invalidate the data? And this is tricky because we need to implement some requirement in the server, and this is I don't know, it's tricky. To answer the second question about when you need to use the widget, basically the widget, in my point of view, is usable when you need to handle the subscription, when you need to listen some event on the server and you need to update your UI. Basically, how Firebase works, right? If you use a Firebase package, you need to subscribe an object, right? And each time the Firebase listens an event on the server, update your UI. This is the only way that I see, also in my use case, useful use a widget, because you don't need to implement nothing, no observer, no other package, external package. You need only to say, hey, here is the data that the server can change sometime, and I want that the change reflect this data. reflect this portion of the UI. And this, I think, is the only way to justify in my point of view, the usage of widgets.
That makes sense. I think I should start playing with the widgets a little bit more, because I just feel like I'm missing out, because a lot of things I just build from scratch, like, pulling up and getting like to load more, this kind of stuff. I just do it by scratch, which is probably not the best way to do it.
To implement the infinite scroll list, if you are talking about that, I don't remember if we need something. Also, I am building with GraphQL client. I am not using the widget because I am comfortable with another package that implement this infinite scroll view and have a controller that when the widget finish the query arrive to the end of the list, he calls this controller and basically you implement the paginator stuff. And in my point of view, this is a very good thing to do with GraphQL. But I don't know if you can build something with the widget. I never play with this type of use case before. But this is another thing that I want to avoid, right? Because now if you implement this infinite scroll list with GraphQL Flutter, you are missing another good package, or maybe you need to work together with this package. But now your application are depending from two different packages, and you need to hope that this package will continue to stay updated. And I am more a client user, because in the client, a GraphQL client user, because in the client you can enter more stuff and say, okay, this is my code and I want to implement this in this way. Maybe you are more comfortable with the widget and you can make the same stuff with the widget, right?
Actually, I have another question for you that just kind of popped into my head. I'm thinking about the code gen, right? Because the cool part about GraphQL, there's some basic types that they have implemented, some basic scalars, right? I think int, ID, which is basically a string. It's more semantic in that case. String, and some other ones, right? But my kind of question or thinking about is like, how would you handle like these custom types that you can create? So I'm thinking like on the server side, I know I can define things like a date time or a date or something like a date, I think was one I defined. And that one's just, ISO year dash month dash day. Like, how would you handle converting back and forth between that? Because that's not so clear, right? That actually has to take some custom code to do.
I'm not the author of the GraphQL code gen. But usually this is specified in a descriptor that is called the build.yaml, where you say, hey, I want this type, and this type is this other type. And the GraphQL code gen, when don't find a type that can respect, when don't find a type, like, I don't know, I have a date time, or other type, right? Custom type. The easy thing to do is convert this type in a string, because the string you can convert in all the type that you want. If you have a timestamp, you can convert the timestamp in a date time easily. And for make easy to do this for the user, right? If you don't declare a type for us, is a string, not for us, because I am not the author. I am also the user, only the user. But for the package, is a type string. And from the string in Dart, you can convert all the types that you want, not only in Dart.
Yeah, but the nice part about the Dart, so what I kind of want to go back to making the server. For people out there, if you have to ever make the server, I think GraphQL is really great to be. If I'm going to implement API, I'd rather implement GraphQL API. Now, let me tell you guys why. The reason is that if any of those custom types fail, it at least for the library that I use, it never hits my application code. So let's say I make a social security number. And let's say that in order to validate a social security number, no, actually, sorry, let's roll it back. Let's say credit card, right? Because everybody in the world has credit card, everybody has social security ID. So let's say credit card. There is some very standard algorithms that can verify if a credit card number is valid or not. So what you can do is when you decrypt this string to be a credit card on the server side, you can do checking on that. And if it fails, you never have to worry about it failing for your backend. So you can automatically remove any type of bad credit card input from users before it even hits your API, which I think is one of the best parts about using GraphQL for a backend. Sorry, you're shaking your head yes because you're like, yes, I forgot about this, right?
Yeah, this is something very cool of GraphQL because this is one thing that I did in my GraphQL Flutter. In GraphQL Server, basically, when we collect the metrics, right, of this black box that we have, you want proof that the guys that are sending you this metrics is real these guys. And what I implemented in this server, we have a query, we have a mutation query. That take for instance, the ID of the node, the payload, the JSON payload, and the signature of this payload. And with the ID that is a public key, I can sign and verify the payload, and I know, okay, this is your black box that are sending the data. This is very cool with GraphQL. But it's also something that is tricky because if you think a little bit to verify a hash of a string, you want exactly this string, and but in GraphQL you want implement the mutation query with a strongly type, right? I want the metrics payload as a GraphQL object, not as a string. And this is something a little bit tricky to do. If I want to verify the data that are provided from a safe source, I have no way to do that, right? Only the way to do that is provide under a string and check the string with some fancy algorithm. If you want, the easy way to do is implement down authentication stuff, right? And you say, you are authenticated, I trust you. But in some other system, the authentication is too much, and you want some simple way. And you got the point, where GraphQL is a little bit tricky, because you need to provide some different type under a string, and with this string you can make your own operation.
What I also like is enums too. It makes it quite clear too. You can use enums, which I think is fantastic. As opposed to REST, you're kind of stuck with just the basic JSON types, and you have to build your own kind of validations. Oh, and one more thing too to talk about the types is that you can make things required or not required, which is also awesome. There's a lot of these nice things that we're so used to that we always forget about.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff of GraphQL. The required and not required properties very good way. Also to talk server client, but not talk by application and application, but developer and developer, right? Because to do that in the REST API, you need to define a JSON schema, and the JSON schema is completely messy. I don't know, it's too confusing. And what I like to do usually in GraphQL is something. If there is the bang operator is not optional, and I know that this property there is always here. If it's optional, maybe this I can avoid, or maybe sometime can cause some null pointer exception in my application. And in Dart, this is a very good information to have, because we have null safety, and if you use a not nullable type with an optional type in the query in the server, you have an error, a compile error, and can be very useful. Sometimes you have this strongly typed inside the query. You can define your type and say this is optional, this no. Your is a good point.
Yeah, that I like I said, I don't think I ever want to go back to using REST after this. I think people just don't know about GraphQL, and that's kind of why I wanted to give an introduction about what it is. So yeah, I think you also used the term REST 2.0.
Yeah.
Is that what the term? Maybe we should call it REST 3.0, because it seems like everybody's at past 2 now, right? You got Web 3, you got 5G. I mean, 2 is too old, I think. Maybe we should bump it up to Web 3.0, 3.1 or something.
Yeah, this is a definition that I am working on the Bitcoin side, and we are thinking about introducing this GraphQL inside one implementation of the Lightning Network. That is another fancy name. And an ex-kernel maintainer said to me, "Hey, this is GraphQL is REST 2.0." Oh, I think you are right? And I like to define GraphQL an evolution of the REST, because take all the tricky stuff that we have in REST and say, hey, this is a standard. We have this good stuff, and why not using it?
The other thing too that I want to talk about real quick for the backend, right? In case you guys are backend programmers, we keep saying all the good stuff about GraphQL, but there is some negatives about GraphQL. The one negative I have to say is how to properly handle the relations, right? When I mentioned like the friends, grandfather's dog kind of thing, if you're using SQL, that can be very tricky to do, right? You need to have some proper querying. Like that is probably one of the worst parts about GraphQL when you're on the back end. How do you usually handle this kind of problem?
Yeah, this is something that is the opposite side of the good thing, right? I usually try to implement to maintain the stuff easy. And with GraphQL, this can be, okay, there is this method to walk inside the tree. Why not using it? The way I think why don't using it is because we can make this stuff very weird and complex, but sometimes you cannot avoid. You want this. This is your data model, and you cannot do nothing about that. And I think in this way you need to properly implement the server in some way that I really don't know right now. I need to think a little bit, but there are some use cases where your server needs to make more work than usual.
Well, there's more than one way to solve this, right? One way is that you can change your database to Mongo and make it all top-level documents, which I think I've heard a lot of people saying is a good idea.
Yeah, the easy thing is change something that is not working, right? Or maybe jump to something more easy to do. And MongoDB or or NoSQL DB is for sure the way to do. But if you think a little bit, if you are implementing your data, your REST API, or you are migrating your REST API to a GraphQL, usually your REST API is more popular that under the hood there is a NoSQL database. And I think in this way you can implement some data replication in a NoSQL database to make this object easy, or this mapping easy. And I think that NoSQL database is the way that reflects much more the data structure of the query, right? because inside you can have another ID, you can jump inside this ID. I think usually you can't if you are you can change the database if you are migrating your API. You have one tech stack under the hood that you cannot change. But this is the choice that I also made in my GraphQL server, is use a NoSQL database because it's simple in some way.
But there's more than one way too, right? The other popular way, which I think is kind of old by now, is using the Dataloader pattern, right? Have you heard this pattern before?
Yeah, I read more on this pattern before, but I am not comfortable with. I never have the use case to implement this walk tree in a complex work tree, right? And I try a simple NoSQL database worked for me. There are these good point that you are making. And also there are different solutions to achieve some project, some goal.
For me, I think a lot of these. So I always use Postgres, and I know that for the language that I use, they have this Dataloader package that just you can just kind of drop in, and it's closely related to the ORM or the database connector that you use. And so when you define your relations, you just define your schema properly, right? And it knows already how to query stuff. So you could say, okay, give me my addresses, states, bird, something like that. And so it could properly traverse everything. And it's kind of cool because it can pull out all the IDs and then pull a query once to the table and say, give me all the states that have these IDs. And it'll pass a list of IDs and then somehow connect everything together. I'm not sure exactly how it works underneath the hood, but I do know that it does separate queries. So if you're getting a bunch of stuff like that, it could reduce the queries from like n+1 to like, n plus whatever number of relations that you have. Makes it much, much easier.
It's something that is as Java developer I use Hibernate. Is something that make the same job. I think you define your schema, your data model, and after that Hibernate say, okay, I know how query this simple data, and you don't worry, you just call the access to a get method, and he implements correctly all the retrieval information with all the database. I think you are talking about something similar. In Go there is another package that makes this job. I don't know how it's called. I think Gorilla or something like that. But there are different frameworks that make this auto mapping of the data model in a database.
But in any case, like I think what I really wanted to kind of output to people is that although we are saying all great things about GraphQL, it's not a silver bullet, right? There's going to be some issues you can run into. But if you're getting stuck by, how can I properly handle API, or how can I make this easier, or whatever, I think it's a great tool. And I think that it solves a lot of issues that are annoying, but you have to trade it off with, can you actually handle all of these kind of n+1 query issues you might run into? And something like Dataloader Pattern or choosing a different database may end up solving that problem for you, but it's not an easy choice saying, okay, just choose option A because that will fit every occasion. That's not necessarily true. So you have to take your kind of choose your poison, I guess. That's one way to say it.
Yeah. I think you are completely true. Right. And also a good another thing is not. I don't think is this problem is another way to see the problem query a big API, right? What we talked before, when you have a REST API, complex REST API, when you fill a single object, you need to traverse a tree. And in the REST API, you need to call n type of you need to query n type of URL, because you want this type, but this type is connected with another type, and you need to make two type of requests. This makes easy the backend, because with two type of URL, you can query two type of server and two type of table, right? SQL table. In the GraphQL is a little bit tricky because this is compact, right? You have a single query that is are going in a server or multiple server, but the query is compact in a way that you need to split in, and maybe you need to make different query sometimes in different place, or maybe also different database. I think also this is another problem that is not solved, right? It's only another way to see the problem.
I think there's some people working on this. I think there's Apollo Federation which is trying to work on this problem. Is that what I'm thinking about correctly?
Yeah, there is a Apollo Federation, and they are making this interface. I see our interface and around after this interface there is a word that is completely, I say, how is big that? And there is this type of project that are try to solving this problem. You got a query, but the query is split in different subquery, and this subquery goes maybe into different server.
Okay, that if I have many different servers, I think they have a much bigger issue to worry about than GraphQL. I think that's small on my list. If I need to start breaking things apart and worrying about this part, I think GraphQL is not a big deal.
Yeah,
that is just an interface issue rather than other kinds of stuff.
Yeah, this is, I think, when you need scale a very big API, and there is a lot of type of solution for this problem, right? But the easy one is split the API in multiple servers.
Okay. I mean, we've definitely gone a lot through your package, and you took up quite a bit of your time. I just have a couple of last questions for you. I think the one last question I have for you is kind of like, what is there any like immediate changes you guys are making that you think people should know about, and that, you know, because you guys are in there shaking things up a little bit, right? At least trying to keep things smooth for now, or you actually have some plans for what you want to do? Because it sounds like you want to integrate more with the code gen. Is that right?
Yeah. Basically, what we have already integrated in the beta. We are in the beta phases. We have the official 5.0.1 version around the corner, but we are under the beta, and with the beta.5, we have implemented in the query result. We have a type that in the GraphQL client that is called the query result. Now in the query result you can call a parse function, and you can mapping the JSON result that the server are sending to you in a Dart object, and with a package that is JSON that make the JSON mapping of your Dart object in auto-generated, right? There is a package like JSON annotation, or I don't remember the name of the package right now, but there is this compile time package that generate from JSON to JSON, and now we have the opportunity to say, okay, you are querying your API, and you want mapping the result directly in an object. And these avoid, for instance, that you need to access in the map that we return, because now we return a map with a string and a dynamic type. This is how the generic JSON is mapping. And maybe you need to access in the user, but the user have some login data, and you need to make this query access in the map, right, with the curly braces, and this is very bad because this make the code very bad. And the things that we are doing is say, okay, you have this parse function. You inject inside this parse function your decode code, and you can decode the solution, the response from the server directly in a Dart object. And this is strictly connected with the Dart, with the CodeGen package. Because you can make all the ticks auto-generated, and you can avoid as much as possible user error.
Okay, that sounds like a good change.
Yeah, and for the future, we want to support the GraphQL, the new GraphQL protocol for WebSocket. To speaking with the WebSocket, because now we supporting a deprecated GraphQL WebSocket protocol. And we won't support the new one, but this is a little bit. We need to find the time. We need to find a way to protect the old user from the change that we introduce, and also we hope to find some grants to support the package and support the developing of this package.
Yeah, I do see you guys actually have some backers, right? So you're looking for more supporting for financially, or for people to actually contribute, or both?
I think for both, because more people are supporting the library, more work for the community. More easy for the maintainer is to maintain the library, right? Because for instance, if we have more collaboration for the user before to open an issue. Now we require an example, right? I want a reproducer example, because I cannot pass 2 days on your issue and after the error is on your server. And the server is basically a thing that you can test, because maybe you have an authentication way, or your API are internal of your startup, and we cannot debugging properly your bug. And if you write an reproducer example, a simple reproducer example, you can find easily if your bug is inside the library or is inside the server. And the thing that we are going to do is, this is also the reason that I'm making the live streaming, is helping the people to say, hey, this is not a big deal. You can do that. If you pass a little bit time to play with Dart and GraphQL, you can help the maintainer to continue to maintain this package, right? And basically with good fixes, we have a community on Discord that the people can talk directly with me and say, hey, I want help. There is some path that I can follow. Maybe you are working on some update example that I can take as a good first way to contributing in the open source world. And we are looking for passionate users that want help the community, because we are doing this for free, and we are doing this in the free time. And if we join the free time, we can continue to support the library and avoid that from 6 months to now we left the package because we don't have any free time. And the other thing that we are looking for is something that can help us financially to support the package, because we are doing this, as said, for free. For me, is my main job is open source, and I live with donation, right? And grant from people that are supporting my project. And I can, if the user use the library and like the library and like how interact or the maintainer interact with the community, is a good way to support this package, because if I need to work, if I need to find a full-time job after 1 year, for sure I need to the job as maintainer of the package?
For me, like, I'm interested to know, like, if I were to give money to the project, where would the money be spent? I mean, I understand it's probably for you, right? For your daily living expenses. But what I see right now is there's not a lot of money coming in. It's like a few thousand $, which I don't think is much. So, like, how would you initially be spending the money? And then, like, are you going to be public about this and, like, how you're going to use it?
Basically, yeah. I usually have a standard basically, if there is some standard standard incoming from the community, basically there is a part of that came to the maintainer that makes some job, right? I fix some bug and I make more work than usual. I take more money than usual. Otherwise, it's the opposite stuff. But one important stuff is we are missing a documentation side. We are missing a domain side. And partially of this donation is also to improve this side that is not covered from the developer, because we are developing, we are like a compiler, right? We care only the code. But the end user wants, hey, I want a website that I want to read how the library works. I don't care how we implement this in the lower level. I want only the upper level. And this is something that need to find more time, right? Because you have the bug fixing, the release step, right? But if you want a documentation and we are not in the top of the list, and you want, I don't know, you want the documentation, we won't put this on priority, right? And we give more importance to the user that are spending a little bit or money for us to support in a proper way the package and the documentation, right?
You sound a lot like American politics, I think. I listen to my big donors more than my non-donors.
It's something that I care too much about the work that is. I love to maintain the people that making some work to continue to do the work that are doing, right? I am so sad to jump inside one repository. I see that maintainer left one popular package that are supporting thousands of for instance, of startups, right? For a full-time job. Maybe if there is someone that, I don't know, can support this library, right? It's good for also to maintain one people that is passionate for doing this type of job, to continue to do that, right? And you have a good package, you can have a more tested package, because if you have a big community, you have a good package tested, right? And I think that support is important in the open source world.
No, but I made a joke before, but I understand, like, you need to give something to people who actually give support back to you guys, right? And I think that makes sense. I don't know what is the best way to do that. I mean, you want to entice people to give support, and you want to give recognition to those people who give you support. But at the same time, you cannot be like, oh, well, you know, this guy is giving money and he wants this particular feature, and because he's been giving money, I should do this thing for him. I mean, that depends on what the feature is, right? I mean, that's going to be tricky, especially if companies start throwing down some massive money.
Yeah, this is tricky, very tricky, because after that we talk about acquisition of the package from what company, and it is out of my maintainer power, right? But the package is the donation is a tricky way. Also because Apollo, for instance, have a client library, the Apollo client library for Android, that is sponsored open source, but is sponsored from Apollo company, right? And the Apollo company have some priority, and maybe the priority for the company is different from the priority of the user. And we try to out all in the same way. But we also asking for that the user help us for not with money, but also with code review, with issue opening or something else, right? Any type of support is welcome. It's not about the money. Oh, I give the GraphQL package an amount of money because I want this feature. Maybe this feature helping your startup, and maybe your developer can developing this feature inside the package and open a pull request, right? It's also a big achievement.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, is there anything else you wanted to say before we just have a couple of last questions outside of GraphQL and GraphQL Flutter?
For GraphQL Flutter, no, we are working step by step to keep alive the package, and I think in the next few days we have the new official release after a long time, and nothing else. I think we cover a good part of the package.
I just have basically two questions that I like to ask. One is, what type of state management system do you like to usually use?
This is a connection of my. I will connect on my previous thing that I told. I don't like coupling with the package too much. I want that tomorrow there is a good guys that implement a good state management. I won't change easily my application. For instance, I am stuck with GetIt because I like too much the way that you implement this type of dependency injection stuff. I don't think that is strictly a good definition of state management in Flutter. I also start to use block, but from my point of view, I see block too invasive inside the GraphQL application. I see block is not like a Flutter application anymore, but it's a block application, right? Because you are depending a lot from the package. But there are use cases where you need a block, for instance, but there are more simple cases where you can abstract in an internal interface your state management or your provider, right? And you can implement different provider with different library. And this is what I am currently doing in my application. I am also developing in the free time one Flutter mobile application for the hospital worker called ShiftU. And this is really what I do in the free time. And it's not, I am not much time to work on this app. And I want to avoid that each time that I need to work, I need to update some package because one is not supported anymore or something else. And for this reason, I am using much more GetIt. Because I can implement by hand what I need. But there are use cases, how I said, that you need external package, more complex package like block. I used block, and I like that also. It's very cool.
Are you using GetIt with Mixin or no?
Oh, no. I'm using only the GetIt package and nothing else.
Okay. We had Thomas on the show a couple of shows ago, and he might be very upset you're not using his mixin because it's pretty interesting. Have you ever seen it before?
Yeah, the mixing you said the mixing of the Dart feature, right? You're talking about.
No, the name of the package is called GetIt Mixin, and it has a lot of stuff built on top of GetIt, which actually makes it easier to work with. It's quite full featured. It's quite cool. You should check it out.
I need to see this package. I missed it. Thanks.
Yes, check it out. And I think the last question I have is, as somebody who is pretty advanced in Dart and Flutter, is there any tips or tricks or warnings you have for people who are beginning their journey within Dart and Flutter?
I have a good. I think what advice to myself is something that when people start coding something, is start to build something that can be useful for learning. But what I found very useful is start jumping in the real project. And for instance, my journey of learning Dart and Flutter is I want build something real. I want working with someone that are building something real. And this is because this is the main stuff that I start to working on. On Flutter and Dart ecosystem, we need a lot of maintainer. If you jump inside the Flutter plugin, there are a lot of plugins without a maintainer, without a notable maintainer. And I really don't understand, because the motivation that one guys that start learning cannot learn in a real project. And I think is a good thing to do, and also the good moment to do, because Flutter is an I think we continue to hear for a long time of Flutter, and it's a good moment to jump in some project and learn real stuff, right? How also in this way you can learn also how to support a community and make your job really useful for someone.
I think that was good. Like, I like that we talked a lot about, GraphQL and what it is, in case people still haven't heard about it yet. Hear more about the package, hear that the package is in good hands, some fresh minds. I think shaking up the people who actually put a lot of input into it is also good too, because you have new pair of eyes, new perspective, and fresh blood to kind of give maybe new ideas to the project. And I think that's good. And I don't think I have anything else. So how can people contact you if they want to get to know you some more?
Oh yeah, I am very active on GitHub, and in my profile with Vincenzo Palazzo, all in one word. Maybe I can share with you the link. I have all the contact list by email, on Twitter. I am very active on Twitter, also on Discord, and some different way to contact me. And yeah, I think it's a good summary, my GitHub, with all my contacts. And also I am on LinkedIn, like Palazzo Vincenzo. I will share also the link to you after.
All right. I appreciate you for coming on. Maybe we can have you back after more releases and see what's the status of GraphQL Flutter. Let people know, what's going on, what's been changing since you guys took over.
I am very excited to be here again to talk with GraphQL Flutter, and Flutter in general is a very good talk. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.